Hi guys, this is Bo from Bo to Fitness, and today I want to talk to you guys about what protein bar should I be consuming. A lot of people have been sending me emails or asking in class about protein bars. You know, you go to the supermarket and these things are like all over the place, you know, and it can be overwhelming. You're like, you know, which bar is the right bar? Those of you that have been following our meal plan that we've talked about in class, the template eating meal plan, we have one of the meals each day that is a protein bar, and along with that is a fresh raw fruit and vegetable, preferably raw vegetable. And so a lot of people have been asking, you know, what protein bar should I get? So I want to talk to you guys today a little bit about protein bars. It's actually a little bit of a complex subject because there's a lot of factors to consider. I'm going to try to buzz through as many of these as possible so that you can make the best choice when you go ahead and buy your bars. All right, so let's look at let's start off with three important elements when you're going to choose your bar in the supermarket, or if you're making your bars at home, which is, I'll be honest, what I like to do now for the most part is I like to make my own bars. Anybody that knows me knows I like to make my own protein bars because it's just so hard to find exactly what I want in the supermarket in my bar. I'll talk about that in a second. And it's also challenging even because, you know, oftentimes the ones that, if I were to find one that was exactly what I wanted, oftentimes they're quite expensive, and I've just found ways to make my bars and save a little bit of money in the process. So, you know, making your bars at home is a great option. Now, if you think about it too, most bars, if you look at the ingredients and you just flip over the label and read, and what you're going to find on the back, you're going to see the ingredients there. Most bars are basically this. It's going to be protein, so you got jug of protein powder, right? Then it's going to be oftentimes vitamins. You know, a lot of them, this one has all these vitamins and minerals added. You're just basically a multivitamin that's been thrown in your bar, some type of powder. It's going to be fat. They're going to take some type of fat, oftentimes from nuts or oils. The good bars are going to have whole, just like nuts, because at least you're getting a whole food, a healthy fat. The ones you want to watch out for are the ones where they just added palm oil and canola oil, and, you know, this bar here on the back, one of the main ingredients was literally milk fat, just fat from milk. It's like, you know, okay, tastes good, but not super conducive to our health. Then you're gonna have things, you know, flavoring, sugars, you know, cocoa, chocolate, stuff like that are added to these bars to give them flavor. Sometimes, you know, dried fruit, various other elements that are added to these bars. So, I mean, a lot of that stuff is stuff you could just go to the store yourself, throw in a blender, and make a shake. What's the advantage of a shake versus a bar? Well, there's a few advantages with bars, especially if you choose a good bar. So, let's talk about a couple of these. Three elements. Well, you know, three elements that are really important when it comes to looking for a ideal protein bar. At least as far as I'm concerned. So, one of the first things that I'm looking for a protein bar is what tastes good. Right? I mean, let's be honest, when I'll tell people about my favorite bar, they're like, oh, you got to try this one, or you got to try that one, and they're like, oh, I tried that one, it was disgusting. Well, if you don't like it, well then, you know, obviously that kind of stinks. So you do want a bar that tastes good. Taste, for most of us, is largely driven. Our favorite things that taste good are usually sugar and fat. So you got to be careful when you're choosing a bar based upon taste alone. You end up choosing a Snickers bar, right? So taste is important, but it shouldn't be the primary, the main factor that you're looking at when you choose your bar. Find a bar that tastes good, but you want to make sure we're going to nail these other things as well. So another element that I think, the second element, so we have taste, the second element is satiety. I got it. That bar has to make me feel full, make me feel satisfied. And now I don't know if I've ever found a single bar that makes me feel full. I mean, I usually could eat, like, you know, 5 or 6 of these things all at once, but there's some key factors that are going to help with fullness, that's going to make one bar make you feel more full than another. One of those factors is its fiber content. Making sure that you drink lots of water with your bar. Also, the volume or size of the bar. You know, you find a bar like this, it's about yay big, and then you find a bar like this. Look at the size and difference there, right? I mean, both real similar in calories. Which bar do you think is going to make you feel more full? Probably the bigger bar, right? So I like to look at the actual grams of the bar relative to the calories. So this bar here is a 50 gram bar, and this bar here is a 65 gram bar. So if it's a bigger bar and calories are equal, I like to go for the bigger bar because it's going to give me more, and yeah, I'm not going over with my calories. So make sure you're comparing the total grams of the bar to the total calories in that bar. Calories is another important element. You want to make sure that you're, if you're going out and buying a bar that has, 400 calories in it, well, then don't be surprised if you're gaining weight. I mean, that's a lot of calories for one bar. I usually like my bars to be about 200 calories or less if possible, because I want to be eating something with that bar. And like I said, preferably a raw fruit and a serving of raw vegetables, or one or the other. So it could be an apple in a bar, a banana in a bar, or it could be an apple, a big serving of baby carrots, a bar, and a bottle of water. Now that's something that would kind of fill me up. So as far as satiety with your bar, remember that it's funny. I hear people all the time, they always say, Bo, what protein bar should I get? Because everybody thinks protein, as though, we don't get enough protein, and that when I go to get the bar, it's got to be pure protein. It's got to be just protein, because we think of protein and satiety. It's almost as though today everyone thinks that satiety is synonymous with protein. And truth be told, that there are foods or substances that are far more satiating, far more likely to make you feel fuller longer than protein-rich foods. So for example, Susan Holt, in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition, when she studied the satiating power of, say, eggs compared to oatmeal, or eggs compared to potatoes, oatmeal and potatoes scored significantly higher. And Susan said we were kind of surprised to find that many carbohydrate foods were far more filling, far more satiating than many protein foods. And there's various reasons for that we won't go into now. We talk about that in class. But oatmeal, I love oatmeal. I like oat-based bars because I know that oatmeal and oat-based bars are far more likely to make me feel full than a bar that's just loaded with protein powder. I mean, because that's all it is protein powder. Protein powder is not super conducive to, making you feel full or make you feel satiated. So I like a little bit of protein in my bar, but I also like something in it that's like oats, and that's why I started making my own bars at home, and I would put oats in them specifically, along with some protein powder and fiber. So my bars would come out at 21 grams of fiber per bar. I think I'd get like 8 to 10 grams of protein, 40 total grams of carbohydrates, but 21 of that was fiber, so really about 20 grams of net carbs. So I figured that's pretty good. And they're also quite low in fat. That's another element you want to look at when you look at a bar, is the fat content. When I look at a bar, I'll see these bars that are like loaded with fat, and to me that's a recipe for disaster, and a few reasons for that. Fat is somewhat problematic for many reasons as far as bars are concerned. One, fat is not a very satiating nutrient. If you look at studies on fat intake, and in fact, Susan specifically commented on that. She says, in fact, we found that fat was the least satiating of all the macronutrients that they studied. Carbohydrate foods came out number one, protein second, fat came in dead last. In fact, if you read Dr. David Kessler's book, The End of Overeating, he would make a strong argument that fat, or fatty foods, or foods that have a lot of fat in them, actually lead to passive overconsumption of calories. They stimulate the appetite rather than shutting appetite off. So I don't want a lot of fat in my bar. However, one advantage with fat, if I have a little bit in a bar, is that fat will delay gastric emptying. So food is held up in the stomach longer, making you have this sensation of food sitting there a bit longer, making you feel fuller a little bit longer. So there are some reasons why a little bit of fat with a meal could be important. But we want to make sure, too, that the type of fat we consume is a healthy type of fat. So I hear people all the time who are like, oh, low-fat diets are really bad, or high-fat diets are really bad. And to me, this is a little bit confusing in the sense that I would want to find out, well, what type of fat are you consuming, or what type of fat are you talking about? Because I've seen lots of people on low-fat diets that are really, really healthy, because they get a sufficient fat intake, and they get it specifically from the types of fats that our body really needs, the essential fatty acids, omega-3s, omega-6s. Whereas you see other people eat a low-fat diet and they're very unhealthy because they just cut fat at random. They're not getting the sufficient fats in every day that they need. And the same could be said for someone on a high-fat diet. But anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. The point is, for me, I want the calories to be low, and I know that by reducing the fat content and beefing up the carbohydrate and protein portion of the bar, I'm going to have a better bar than a bar loaded with fat. So when you start finding bars that have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on grams of fat per bar, I just hope that you're gaining weight, or I'm sorry, not that you're gaining weight, but that your goal is to gain weight, or that you are eating a much lower carbohydrate diet. Those who eat low-carb diets and have higher fat can sometimes get away with it a little bit. Not that I'm an advocate of low-carbohydrate diets, but that being said, what we've looked at so far, to kind of summarize here, is we want a bar that's relatively low in fat, high in fiber, 7 to 20 grams or more, preferably from a fiber that's going to sit well in the stomach, preferably no sugar added. So like when I make my own homemade bars, I don't add any sugar, I don't put any artificial sugars, and that's hard to find with a lot of the store-bought bars. And a decent amount of protein. I would say as much as 20 to 30 grams is fine, but even if it's only 5 grams of protein per bar, a little bit of protein, as long as you got a good healthy carbohydrate source with that, is going to give you a good satisfying snack that's going to help hold you over to the next meal. And then lastly, volume and calorie density. Make sure that bar is it's going to taste kind of filling. So now what you have to do is you have to kind of make your own choice on this, as far as what bar do you feel is going to meet all that criteria. I think that some bars do better than others. So for example, I know some of the Quest bars are pretty good. They have a high fiber content, they're very low in sugar, quite a bit of protein coming from predominantly whey protein isolate. But there are some issues with those, if you're trying to watch your fat intake. Some of the bars, the Quest bars can be quite high in fat. Some of them have added sugar alcohols and or artificial sweeteners. So there's, pros and cons with that. If you're trying to go plant-based, I like to go with plant-based proteins that are non-soy based. So I make my bars with predominantly plant-based protein powder. And if I do use a whey protein, I try to get a cold processed, high quality protein that has been FDA inspected and is also preferably from grass-fed cows if possible. So hopefully that gives you some insights into choosing the best protein bar. To summarize one final time here, for a good, satiating, healthy snack to help hold you over from one meal to the next and to have that element of convenience, you want to choose a bar that is relatively low in fat, has maybe I would say as much as 5 to 6 grams of fat is sufficient. It's not to say that there couldn't be more or less, but generally speaking, that's going to be a pretty decent bar. Somewhere between 5 to 30 grams of protein per bar, somewhere between 7 to 21, 22 grams of fiber would be awesome. Preferably no added sugars, no added artificial sweeteners. I personally think too, trying to stay away from added vitamins and minerals and stuff like that is a good idea if possible. A lot of the bars are adding those, so if you can do without, that'd be great. And as close to natural as possible, if it's all made, all whole foods. There's a lot of cool bars coming out now that are more whole food. And if you can make them at home and make them less expensive and make them better quality, then by all means do that. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any more questions or you'd like to talk to me in person, just get a hold of me at botafitness.com, BOTA fitness.com, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Have a great day.